if that little bit more money means that my books are going to come back quicker, then hallelujah.
Hey there, comic book friends and fiends. It's Rob, and with me, my friends Manny and Taylor. How are you guys doing today?
Well, one of my personalities is good. The other two are awful.
I reconciled all of mine, and now I'm just generic Manny. You know, I was a lot more interesting in the hands of better writers.
Yeah, understandable.
I'm sure this is going to mean something to me in a moment. Actual Dracula will be joining us in a moment. He's running just a little bit behind, and that's fine. We'll get him here. Everybody, thank you for coming on out here. I see Lis Crucius here, of course, my main man. Lis Crucius is without the super fan. Thomas Taps, how you doing? Thank you very much. Brandon Looney Tunes fan 200. Dear Jim, how you guys doing? And people will be showing up. Welcome to you as you come on, or if you're just watching this later on in the future, and we're in your past. Thank you for coming by and checking us out here too. Today we're going to be having a conversation about the Moon Knight character, who, of course, has hits recently been making a big splash in comics recently, a big push for him. If you're familiar with the old wrestling terminology, he's getting his push from the Marvel group because of a Disney Plus show. Today, we're not going to be discussing necessarily the Disney Plus show.
Well, then see ya.
Yeah, we're here to talk about the comic book character, who I know that he wears white, I guess, even after Labor Day. And maybe he comes out at night, and I've heard people talk about mental illness and some other things. I really don't know much. I've never read a Moon Knight comic ever in my life. I don't think I've ever even read a book where he has been in the book. Maybe that's not true. Maybe he's been an auxiliary character in some Spider-Man book or something I read at one point, but I don't remember it. And I have not watched any of the Disney Plus shows yet. So everything I have knowledge when it comes to Moon Knight for myself is just purely osmosis from the world around me and accidental pickup from listen to other people talk. So I thought there must be other people like me, because I don't think that Moon Knight is an A-list character. Would you guys describe him as an A-list
until
character?
After Disney Plus show is a hit. No, he's definitely not. You know, that's kind of why I like him.
Right. And so there's probably a lot of people who really don't know much about him. Why is he getting a show? Why should we care about him? And thought this was a great opportunity. Let's bring on some people who claim to be actual fans from before the recent hype and, the speculative hype. And let's find out a little bit about Moon Knight and everything else with that. So, I already see like Digger Jim's posting up a question. Is Moon Knight the first Marvel hero with a mental disorder? I'm assuming he's mental and not mental disorder, because we know that Wolverine would have had the mental disorder a little bit earlier.
No, you could argue that the Hulk has dissociative personality disorder as well. So
yeah, they've gone down that path quite a bit.
I think Moon Knight might be the one that they've leaned heavily into, especially Jeff Lemire leaned heavily into the mental health aspect.
Yeah, others did as well, like Bendis did, but like to less success, I think. But yeah, there's been a few writers that touch on it, and some that flat out ignored it. But yeah, it's sort of like the Hulk, where like sometimes like, oh, he's got issues, and sometimes he just gets angry.
Well, some people could argue that technically anybody who's going to dress up in a costume and go out and do stuff probably has some sort of mental health issues of some sort. Even, Peter Parker even has some mental health issues that come up from time to time and stuff. So by all stretch of imagination, probably not, but those aren't necessarily the main purpose of his character, so to speak.
Sure.
But before we get explore that side of the topic much further, let's back up to the beginning for a second.
All right.
Who the is Moon Knight?
Has there been and Jake Lockley?
Has there been more than one Moon Knight? Let's make it easy to start with.
As of this year, yeah, technically, because there's an Avengers Forever where there's a female Moon Knight, but no, not really. So,
all right. So we have essentially like one guy who is Moon Knight.
Yes.
Now, who is he, and what?
Well, he's either somebody that has a mental disorder and imagines everything he's doing, or he's a servant of Khonshu, the moon god, who might have raised him back from the dead in the desert, or might not have. And he might have superpowers that get stronger when the moon is full, or he might not. And he's either Stephen Grant, Mark Spector, or Jake Lockley. I mean, it really varies from writer to writer and everything else. But like, yeah, he's the basic A story is Mark Spector, a mercenary, turned on his fellow band of mercenaries when they wanted to kill people, and he said, "Hell no!" And so they killed him in the desert, and then he got dragged into the temple of Khonshu, and Khonshu brought him back to life and said, "You're back to life, but you're my bitch now." And so that's kind of how it goes. So,
Manuel, your take on that?
Yeah, I mean that hits all the main notes. You know, Mark obviously he's got a little bit more of a moral code than say the Bushmen and the other guys he was working with. So I guess that makes him a hero, but he's still kind of a hired gun. So I guess you gotta play that one fast and loose,
sort of Punisher-esque.
Yeah, you know,
I mean, he will kill people and stuff too, and it really, that's kind of all over the map with.
Yeah, Moon Knight can be pretty brutal. The
Adrian!
Hey
guys.
brother.
The last of the personalities is here.
Save the best.
You're the Jake Lockley.
Yeah.
You've even got the hat.
I'm happy with that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you break. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Finish
Oh no. I was just gonna say, yeah, he pretty much hit the nail on the head there.
So let's talk. Help me understand. So this concept that he maybe is imagining it, or he maybe actually have powers. Is this a writer thing that they've gone down different paths on this, or is this just a?
I think Bendis leaned more heavily into the. Correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but I think it was Bendis's run that would lean more heavily into the schizophrenia side. Like maybe he is totally imagining Khonshu, where I think Warren Ellis and Cullen Bunn. I mean, there's a lot of supernatural stuff with a lot more people involved that I think that kind of leads more heavily into Khonshu's a real being.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the Bendis run is the one I'm least familiar with. I don't think I've read any of that, to be honest.
Honestly,
yeah,
if you're gonna skip a run, that's a good one to skip.
So, yeah, I mean, I am a fan of the ones that do kind of lean heavily into the supernatural, and you know, I'm most familiar with the first, the Doug Mensch run, which has this kind of like monster of the week feel to it, as did the Warren Ellis, short run. But I actually was really into that kind of style of storytelling, and that whole supernatural lean, implying that Khonshu is very much a real god, and therefore Moon Knight has real powers.
Okay, so
go ahead.
So as we're so this is where we're at with this. So what are his powers essentially?
That's actually a great question.
That also really varies.
Yeah, he's got gadgets.
Help me out here, guys. Come on.
I never tried, but he's a tricky character. He really is.
He's very street level. I mean, in terms of what he can do, it's very street level. He even there's a point where he's fighting ghosts and he can't hit them, so he has to put on like different armor. So it's like his power set is not super defined. He's got
does he have superpowers?
Yeah,
he's like Batman on steroids.
He does, and it is sort of. I guess I think. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it is sort of like accepted that he's stronger at night when the moon is out.
Yeah,
So,
his powers go with the phases of the moon.
Yeah,
that's why by day he's driving cabs.
Yeah,
right?
But I mean, he relies on a glider, and he is batarangs or moon.
Yeah, and he does have like all the mercenary fighting skills and stuff too.
Yeah,
unless you're Jason Aaron, which
he's a highly trained
Thor and Shatter Mjolnir. So
he's at the very least he's top performance human with fighting skills, everything else.
Yeah,
potentially also with some sort of mystical enhancements tied to the moon phases.
Yeah, I think with Khonshu being
that sounds about right.
Yeah. Khonshu being such an ancient being and kind of kind of like Lovecraftian gods, right? Like he's not involved enough. So when he's involved, Moon Knight's powers might be more increased. Does that make sense? Like at one point, he's falling out of a plane and he survives that because Khonshu helps him survive. So it's his power set is kind of
so then it's not, that's not
on
really
the whims of his
that's
god.
just this divine intervention off to the side.
Yeah, but that does touch on something. Like Khonshu is one of the more interesting parts of the Moon Knight thing because he's not a friendly, happy god. He's a petty asshole. Part of my language, and like that's what makes it kind of interesting is because like he like always has these beefs with other gods and wants to become more powerful, and if Moon Knight doesn't do exactly what Khonshu wants, Khonshu will take away some shit. And so like it really is like a power play. Like Khonshu might be the villain of the series. So it's
interesting.
Well, in Age of Khonshu, he definitely is in that Jason.
Yeah.
So what essentially, because most heroes have some sort of mission or underlying mission. What will we define? What's Moon Knight's drive, his mission, his other than of course do what I say, bitch from Khonshu. What
I mean,
he's a protector of the weak at night.
That's right. That you boil down, he's the protector of the people who travel at night. It's as simple as that. I mean, really. And I guess you could take that for.
So we need some Moon Knights out at universities around the United States, especially during spring break and such.
One of the interesting things I think Jed McKay is doing is like he's a faithless priest too. Like he's committed to being the protector of those who travel by night and a priest of Khonshu, even though he himself doesn't believe in Khonshu anymore, which is why the Hunter's Moon parallel of that like real strong religious zealot versus a lapsed person of faith. It's an interesting dynamic if nothing else that Jed's toying with.
It's actually that's one of the more kind of interesting personas of Moon Knight, of course, is the whole Mr. Knight persona, in that he is literally protecting people by out there doing the street level stuff, beating up monsters and bad guys and all this. But then, in the current Jed McKay run, he's set up this midnight mission, where people can come and see him as, like you said, like a faithless priest, right? And go to him for help. It is interesting. It's one of the things I really like about this current run.
Definitely. So that brings me kind of, because this is, I'll tell you, I don't know if I even know less now than I thought I did before when I knew nothing. But you guys talked about the personalities. So I have a feeling that somehow this is kind of an important key in tying into everything else and why it's so kind of convoluted. So are all these personalities, how many I know they're probably more than easy, but there's three. Okay. So we have a trinity. There's a shocker in a religious allegory story. So we have a trinity here, and who are they, or what are their relations to one another? Or is there?
There's Mark Spector, the mercenary. There's Stephen Grant, who is usually the money. He's like either like a producer or something, and he's always rich as hell. So he's kind of like the Bruce Wayne, the playboy. And then there's Jake Lockley, the man on the street that drives a cab and gets street level information. That's kind of how it started off with Doug Mensch. And then it kind of has branched out and shifted a bit towards then. But like those are the three basics. So.
And so he just changes from personality to personality at whim and at the writer's whim, or are there triggers, or
essentially because like when Doug Mensch wrote him, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I only read the first half of that run recently, it wasn't even established as multiple personalities. It was just today I'm going out as Jake to see what's on the streets. Like it wasn't really.
That's the wrong.
It was
very much had that feeling. Yeah, where he'd be. He'd show up at his house and it'd be like, "Oh, who are you right now?" It's I'm Steven or I'm Jake or whoever. Yeah, it wasn't so clear cut that this guy had a mental illness. He could have just been putting on a different persona. consciously, right? So
Yeah, Lemire touches on that a little bit because he said
Yeah.
like when he became Moon Knight, he had an excuse to use these other aliases and keep, because Jake and Steven have been with Mark since he was a kid, so it gave him an excuse to keep these other personalities around and use
Yeah,
them as
Lemire
aliases.
probably did the most to flesh it out and so like treat it as a dissociative identity disorder and stuff. Other writers have, but like they didn't necessarily do such a great job of it all the time.
Okay. And so do each of these personalities aware of the Moon Knight aspect of us all, or is it just one of them that's Moon Knight? Or
Mark Spector is Moon Knight, and the others sometimes know and sometimes don't. And so, this is the part where the writer inconsistency can drive you mad because, like, it's
Yeah.
not, and it's all been kind of retconned and redone and stuff. So, like, but Mark Spector is generally the one that's considered to be like, I think the head personality and the Moon Knight personality.
and in that Doug Mensch run, you kind of get the sense that they all know who Moon Knight is, and they all know that they're Moon Knight because they're all kind of working together towards the same thing, So they have, they all have their part to play.
Yeah. But like in the Bendis run, for instance, the multiple personalities never really touched on. He just spends the entire run talking to Spider-Man, Wolverine, and Captain America in his head. So it's a whole different thing. So
why not?
yeah.
Okay. Manny, why should I care about this hot mess? Apparently, and why do you think it's important that I should care, given Marvel's or Disney's decision to introduce this character into the Marvel universe or MCU?
One, he's got a really cool costume, Rob. I mean, let's just face it, he looks cool. No,
Hey, let's be honest. So certain superheroes have made it for less.
Yes. No, he the thing about Moon Knight. Okay, so my first involvement with Moon Knight was Marvel Ultimate Alliance, the video game. He was just a playable character. I thought he looked cool. And then what's that round robin event little with Punisher and Moon Knight and Spider-Man and Night Thrasher, like he's in that, and I was like, okay, cool. So he's like Batman. He's got a glider,
street level heroes, yeah. Okay.
And I was like, well, this isn't that cool. But the thing is, like, the more you grow as a reader in comics, you start to kind of gravitate towards the pretentious shit. Like you're like, oh, dude, Warren Ellis. I freaking love Warren. Even just by name alone, I buy so many trade paperbacks from Warren Ellis, and I'm probably never even gonna read them, but they're there because I'm one of those readers, right? But diving into this was a really cool character. The idea of somebody who deals with the supernatural, that's always been something that's appealing to me. So if you're a fan of like Ghost Rider, Hellstorm, any of those, you're gonna see something you like in this book. The artwork's been amazing in those runs, and if you can follow it from Warren Ellis through Brian Wood, through Cullen Bunn, through Lemire, you're gonna get this really, really cool story. That's a really personal, character-driven piece, and that's what hooked me in.
Interesting. So you get this is the fact that he wears a white costume. He's not scared like Batman. Actually, I would say that it's actually. I'm going to guess, with knowing nothing here, based on what you guys have told me, Batman is vengeance, but Moon Knight is a protector.
He is, and the thing is, he's a protector, but he's also, I mean, Batman's a badass. We can all agree, but Moon Knight, 100% badass, because that's exactly like to Mark's point. He's like, I think in one book, he literally says, "I want them to see me coming."
Yeah,
like, he's not trying to hide that these guys should be afraid of him. So
interesting.
Yeah.
So, who is, aside from potentially Khonshu, who is? Everybody's got some bad guys. Who are some of the big bads for Moon Knight?
This
Does
is
he-
Adrian and I talked about this on a different line.
Yeah.
That's where that's one of his weaknesses as a character, and kind of why the Marvel show is just making up their own shit, because he doesn't have a great rogues gallery.
No, not one of note. Really.
Black Spectre. That's probably the only character if I had to think of one, and they're always
yeah, I
one
mean,
and done. So
I mean,
There's
we can throw out names like Morpheus and Bushmaster
And Midnight Sun.
Stained Glass Scarlet, but to most people those aren't going to mean anything because they're not really, popular characters or very memorable villains.
Honestly, I could argue, and I could probably do this for about 4 hours, that Khonshu is the big bad guy in the show.
Yeah, I think you might be right about
Which
that.
which is another reason I think he's an interesting character, because he's beholden to his enemy. Basically, he wants to be free of Khonshu, like more than anything, but then he ends up being pulled back in because he wants to be the protector as well. So there's a pretty interesting dynamic there, I think.
So, and here's where I'm going to step in another giant landmine real quick of a gap. People's going to go, oh my God, Rob knows nothing about comics. How the hell have we thought he knew shit? But isn't that sort of Spawn-esque? Wasn't Spawn like originally like beholden to fucking his own arch enemy essentially?
Probably Moon Knight came 20 years earlier, and I'm not going to say Todd the God ever stole an idea.
Right. No, I'm not saying which came first. I'm not saying one's a chicken and one's the egg. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of another character that people might be familiar with.
Yeah.
It just happens to be in this case, I'm not familiar with either one of them because, well,
the first character that comes to mind, and I would not say is necessarily a villain or arch nemesis or anything like that, is of course Werewolf by Night. But I think Moon Knight has, kind of feels for him a bit in that, they're kind of both beholden to something else. Werewolf by Night can't control that he's a werewolf. He doesn't want to be a werewolf, but he is. And I think that's the character I think probably most people would be familiar with, even though they fought, but they're not, really, they've also worked together. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So as we're coming into the last third of the show here, we have a very complex and complicated character to be certain. Why do you think Marvel's bringing him into the MCU at this point? What do you expect them to do with him?
I think it's going to lead to another team of some sort down the line, be it Midnight Suns, be it the Defenders, be it the Dark Avengers, something like that. I think it's going to be the building block to that. I think they brought him in because he's complex and because he's different. And I think the writers were getting fucking bored. So they're like, let's bring in a character study versus flavor of the week bad guy, so.
I think you could absolutely be right about that. This could be kind of the Daredevil of the next phase for Marvel's television shows, and like let's start with this character and start adding in some other stuff and maybe building a team like they did with Daredevil and Jessica Jones and all that, the Defenders, right? Yeah, that's possible.
I think it's a hold my beer. I think MCU is just like, hey, we can make any character popular, and because this character is essentially a blank slate that people don't know a lot about, we can build around him, right?
That's true.
Hold my beer.
Well, yes, and also I think the reason they did it this way is because like this is the first character that I can think of that has been introduced as a TV character in the MCU, right? And like because it wanted to give the origin time to breathe and stuff, and like it is an origin not many people are familiar with, and they wanted to, and they're telling it in a weird way on the television show, which is good, I think. But like, I think that's another reason they did it this way is because you can't just like, as Rob's like brain's about to explode just listening to this, like you can't just like summarize his origin and like, oh look, there's some pearls going down the street. Okay, we got it. Dead parents, billionaire, Batman.
I have to agree with. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was going to say I have to agree with Flash by Night, absolutely, because this is definitely one of the ways they're ushering in their whole kind of supernatural properties. This and Blade, of course, and maybe we'll see some crossover there at some point. But they've got so much potential there. Like I mentioned, Werewolf by Night, of course, Dracula, Tomb of Dracula. So I think that's just another way they can bring those sorts of characters in.
Right, and we know that from what we've heard, such as Moon Knight's going to be limited to this TV screens. He's not necessarily there's no movie contract with the actor, so it's strictly going to be stuff that's going off on the Disney Plus shows.
I mean, he got he did a 1-season contract or something, so which was smart.
It could be a one and done, or else they have to come back and.
Or he's just he can negotiate for more. I mean, it's a cash
put him
grab
under
for Oscar
bandages
Isaac.
and stuff.
Right?
Then who cares, right? You put anybody in there.
Well, I think after Apocalypse, he kind of learned his lesson. And it's like,
that too. Yeah.
Fair enough. All right, so don't forget. The Agatha all along stuff, and there is a mystical side or a magical side of Marvel that they've been teasing and dancing around on the edges, and it doesn't. Even if at first you think, well, no, they wouldn't do that. Think what they did with the galactic, the outer space aspect with Guardians of the Galaxies and everything else, and where we're looking like we're going with more stuff there. Marvel had a very huge and rich series of environments to operate in, especially in the 70s, and bringing some of that back to the front does make some sense. So let's, if somebody wanted to get into this, they're going to pick up a trade paperback, right? What do you think would be one of those stories that somebody should pick up and to get acquainted with Moon Knight?
Read the Warren Ellis stuff for sure.
I was just about to say that. Yeah.
And I would say read the Jeff Lemire stuff.
Yeah.
So, and they're both pretty quick reads and pretty easy to get into, especially digitally.
I would also say read read the first, whatever you want, 8-10 issues of the Doug Mensch, Bill Sienkiewicz run as well. That'll certainly give you an idea of where the character came from, for good or ill. And also, so there is some fantastic artwork by Bill Sienkiewicz in there. So
there is.
Yeah. What about the current run? If somebody said, forget it, I don't care about any of the old stuff, could they just pick up the current run and pretty much figure out enough to get going and go? Because we're only a few issues in still, right?
Yeah, we're like 8 or 9 issues.
I think they may not learn as much about Moon Knight and his origins, but it's a great read regardless. Yeah.
My only issue with the current run is they really have not touched on the mental stuff at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm hoping they will, and I'm betting they will, but thus far it's been kind of ignored. That said, it is. I agree.
Yeah,
it's a great
just
read.
Mr. Knight, and Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right. Wow. All right. Let's go around the horn. Anything else on this topic of Moon Knight that you think that that person like myself who's a blank slate, you're trying to either convince me or something else that we haven't touched on that's important to know? Let's start with you, Adrian.
I don't know if there's any. I think anything that's important to know we probably already touched on, but I guess I'd say if you haven't read Moon Knight, if you watched maybe the first episode of the show and are intrigued, I'd say definitely give it a shot. Reading some of the comics. If you're a fan of, he's kind of a perfect blend of that street level hero, Daredevil, Batman style character with horror and supernatural. A lot of people compare him to Batman, but I'd say the closest comparison for me would be someone like Ghost Rider. And again, I think speaking back to, why would they start this? Why would they bring out about Moon Knight right now? Well, Ghost Rider is another character that eventually is going to show up. And I think, the two of them together, I think it's inevitable we'll see those two characters together, or at least be somewhat connected. So,
Manny?
For me, the big draw to Moon Knight is there are big questions being asked without it being a message heavy book. I mean, Mark Spector is the son of a rabbi who serves an ancient Egyptian god. I mean, there's some questions of faith there, and I think that like people like Cullen Bunn have really leaned into that, where you how does somebody like a human being process the wants, the needs, the desires, the machinations of something so aloof and separate from humanity, because he keeps running into things that are servants of Khonshu that are beyond the pale for him. So like I don't know, that makes me think as a person of faith, like how would I react in those situations? So it's asking big questions, but it's not asking a lot out of the reader. It just kind of touches on just enough to keep those breadcrumbs coming. And then of course the character himself, especially in the hands of Jeff Lemire, I think just did a phenomenal job of reeling that in and pulling in close to home. So I'm a big fan. He makes me think a lot. Moon Knight does.
Taylor.
He wears a white fucking suit, dude.
We got Manny's dropping the big $12 college words, and wears a big fucking white suit. All right.
I mean, like, if you're bored with traditional heroes and traditional, like, origin stories, or like the poor college kid that's that still slings webs and stuff, just give Moon Knight a try, because he's at least different.
Yeah, he offers something different. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you are. Something different. Guys, I can't say that I really feel like I really know much more, but I do know a lot more that I don't know. I don't understand. I don't. It's like before I didn't know there was a ball of yarn. Now I have a big tangled ball of yarn.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to consume that, but I'm going to digest it. And hopefully you guys at home, if you're like me and really knew nothing about that, you take those little pieces and now you can go into watching Moon Knight. Even if you're not going to pick up the comics and read it, which I probably won't, be honest, not because I don't want to, because reading is hard for me, but I'll sit down, I'll watch the show, and maybe this will help me get that much more out of that show. Or if I don't initially get it, help me to be going, okay, I have an idea where this is going now, and give it those couple episodes to get itself established and going.
Maybe. So. You basically asked, who is Moon Knight? And we responded, how long is a piece of string? I'm sorry. We couldn't be more help.
Don't unfold the ball here. Just stick around and have some fun. Exactly.
Hey,
That's essentially what we got there. Very, very good. Excellent. Give you guys a quick, Manny, what do you got coming up on your show this week? On your channel?
Yeah, Friday night is retailer creators roundtable. So it's going to be a bunch of retailers. We're going to be talking about the hobby and kind of where it's going. And then the following week, we got Ananda K, Andre Moody, and one other surprise guest, hopefully, if they hammer it down. But anyway, that's happening on the channel this month. That's all well and good, but definitely sub up my boy Nick, Comic Culture. Dude drops phenomenal content. Nick at Night, probably one of my favorite review shows on the platform. Make sure you check him out. Give him a sub. So
awesome. Thank you. Taylor.
I'm going to start reviewing omnibuses and statues. No, I've got my weekly comic book review show tomorrow. And then Monday, I got unboxing match with IRF Authentics. And so,
really?
That should be a fun one. Yeah. So
I bet you're going to get some signed stuff.
You think? Yeah. So
that's cool. And Adrian.
Tomorrow night I've got comic picks in the 4 and 6 with Comic Aussie on my channel, where we show off our new comic book day hauls, back issue pickups. And then this Thursday, planning so far, I'm going to be doing Casual Dracula. Last week I did kind of a discussion about the first episode of Moon Knight with Mr. Taylor Winder here and Flash by Night. And I believe we may be doing that again this Thursday after the second episode, and potentially after every other following episode. And I believe I will also be on Moonlit Comics next week to talk about Moon Knight yet again. It's Moon Knight heavy month for me.
It's like Moon. So. Why do you think that is? Why are so many people interested in Moon Knight all of a sudden?
Wait. I have no idea.
And for myself, of course, I'll open up some boxes. Hell, Thursday, I got a little J. Scott Campbell mystery box that's going to open up there. Saturday will be SlabHub. My guest this week is Comic Man Andy. He'll come on to share some of his slabs. And I got SlabHub booked out now, back out through July. And let me tell you guys, we're going to go through a run of some amazing guests. You're going to want to make sure that you're liking and subscribing and being on there, because we're going to hit a run of like 4 or 5 weeks of some just mind-boggling golden age and atomic age books that are just going to
I mean, you're already on a roll, and
I'm gonna have to get some boner pants.
Who knew it would have been the Pokemon that kicked it off? I mean,
I'm getting ready for my appearance.
Yeah, and
Nice.
then Monday mail call this week. If the package is delivered on time, I will in there will be the most expensive raw book I have ever picked up on this week's mail, on this next coming mail call. So make sure you like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know it's coming on. And to all of you who joined us and to my panel, thank you all so very much for coming out and joining me today. I very much appreciate it. This is what it's all about, is the community and having fun and sharing our passions together with one another. So thank you very much. Until next time, guys, collect what you want. Don't listen to any of us, including me, because I'm just a fat man with a fat stack of comics and a fat opinion. Thanks for watching.